What's going on? What's going on? What's going on, my people, my people, my people? Welcome to the very first episode of Through a Culture Lens. I am your host, Michael Anthony, and I'm here with the best host on YouTube. Her name is Amber Gray. What is going on, Amber? How you doing, girl?
I'm doing well today. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. We had a little bit of snow. Of course, with us
I
being
love
here
it.
in the DC area. Oh, yeah, because you're from Cali, so
I
you're not
am.
used to snow,
I'm not used to snow, but I like the idea of if it's going to be winter, it's going to be 25 degrees, you might as well snow.
right?
Just go ahead and give it to me. Just give it to me at this
Right.
point.
Well, the thing is, though, it just felt like it was continuously snowing. Like it just felt
Yeah,
like the snow just kept like every morning. It felt like
I
for three straight
agree.
days, it felt like it just was going to keep coming, keep coming, keep
I
coming.
know.
You
I
know.
know. And then it turned into real hard ice. And I mean, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those people, like I said, if you're going to snow, just, I don't want to do Snowmageddon. You weren't up here. I don't think you were up here for that. But did you get
Okay.
that that
In
was
North
like
Carolina, yes,
2010?
yes,
Yeah. Did you
yes,
guys get
yes.
that
Yeah.
snow down
Mm-hmm,
there?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We
That
did in North
was,
Carolina. We
yeah,
did.
I don't want that. I don't
Yeah,
want
that was
that.
bad. That was
That
bad.
was bad.
I remember when they showed the streets of Atlanta. It looked like The Walking Dead. Yeah,
That's
that was pretty
right.
bad. I remember
That's
that. Yeah, that
exactly
was pretty
right.
bad. That was pretty bad. Well, welcome people, of course. Folks in the chat, welcome. Of course,
Welcome.
we always like to say that you are the third host of the show. So please give your input because this is definitely an open show for everybody to comment on.
That's right.
Before we sort of get into our topic, of course, our topic today is Take a Knee. A few things that we like to kind of cover is like some industry news. And there was some big news that sort of got released this week, and that would be the Golden Globes. The Golden Globes, is going to be on February 28th, which is a Sunday, this month. And they had some pretty notable nominees up there. What'd you
Yeah.
think about the list, Amber?
I felt ashamed because I was telling you earlier, I was like, I haven't seen that. I haven't seen that. And
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if it wasn't on Netflix or if it wasn't on Hulu or Disney, I probably haven't seen it or HBO
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of these were Showtime and some of these like premium networks where we're already spending all this money on all these other networks
Right.
that we just didn't get a chance to see some of them. But I saw some things that I was happy to see. Like we talked about, I actually really enjoyed, which I'm shocked, the Borat subsequent movie film. So when I
Mm-hmm.
saw that was nominated, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, I'm happy to see the little silly film get
Yep. Yep.
nominated, but
Yep.
I was
Yep.
kind of disappointed with some other films. I May Destroy You, as you know, that everyone. So just for kind of like frame of reference, this is not our first show, but this is our first show that we've kind of advertised to people. So we do have some other shows. We'd love for you all to go back and view, which are great, have a lot of great content.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I May Destroy You is a show that I have been rooting for since it
Mm-hmm.
came out over the summer, but it did not get nominated, and I saw some upset people online too. So I was like, "Tuck on it." I was a little hurt,
Right, right. Well, I know
but you,
you've been talking about the show for a while. I
yeah,
haven't seen the show just yet. I know just like you talked about, we did some dry run episodes, but this is our debut episode.
right,
And so we did actually cover your love for this particular show.
loved
I
it.
mean, it wasn't
Yeah,
up there, no, but they did have some ones up there like Viola Davis and Chadwick both got nominated
great. Yeah, I'm happy to
for
see
Ma
that.
Rainey's Black Bottom. Audrey Day in the United States versus Billie Holiday, which is very interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
And actually, she got nominated for a song as well
Oh, that's great.
with
Okay.
Raphael Sadiq. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh, my guy, my
Yeah,
California
yeah.
guy.
Leslie
Okay.
Odom Jr. for One Night in Miami, and of course Regina King. She got her
He deserved
nomination.
it. He
Mm-hmm.
deserves that. He did great.
And who else? Don Cheadle for Black Monday, which is a show on Showtime.
I
Um,
think you've told me about that, but I have not
mhm.
seen that. I have not seen that yet.
Yeah, it's a good show. It's about a black, basically banker, or works in stock market, and is
Okay.
trying to trade money and things like that. But it's dated back in the '80s. He has like a
Mm.
stretch Lamborghini in the movie.
Very 80s.
He's very
Very
'80s,
80s.
and Regina Hall is actually in it too. Regina
Oh,
Hall is
good.
actually in it.
Okay.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So it's a pretty decent show. It's a pretty decent show.
Okay.
And
Okay.
in Soul got for
Yeah,
nominated
that's our
for
film.
best animated, and then of
I'm
course
happy to see that.
your your guilty pleasure Lovecraft Country got
Oh
nominated for
yeah,
best television
love.
series. Like how do you think that's going to be? How do you think that's going to go?
I do. I think they're gonna win. No. Am I
Mm-hmm.
happy they're nominated for the culture?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I've been saying over and over again about Lovecraft. You can have your, feelings about Lovecraft. You can have some, any sort of like kind of angsty feelings about their, execution of the show. But for the culture, to know that a black showrunner, primarily black cast, is nominated for best show for a Golden Globe, I'm happy.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, the
I don't
Hollywood
know. I
Foreign
don't think
Press.
they're gonna win. I don't think they're gonna win, but I'm happy.
Yeah. I mean, just to get the recognition, I think is
Exactly.
is pretty big, you know. So of course,
right.
you know, it's going to be February 28th. We're talking about doing a show, and you know, definitely if you can catch up on some of the movies and TV shows because we definitely want to have that dialogue of what's a good show. And you know, the Golden Globes is going to be actually simulcasted in two locations. One's going to be in New York, where Tina Fey is going to be, and then of course, as Miss Candace was talking about coming back to Cali. Where they just got a few drops of rain, you know.
Few drops.
Yeah, just a few drops of rain. I think Amy Poehler, she's going to be in Los Angeles, where it
Okay.
typically takes place at. So
That'll
it should
be
be
cool.
it should be definitely an interesting watch. Should be definitely an interesting watch.
Yeah, that'd
So
be cool.
yeah. So of course, getting on to today's topic. Today we'll be talking about the Take the Knee movement,
Yeah.
and you know this here really sort of came about because of the Super Bowl. You know, we have the Super Bowl
Right.
coming up this week. It's on Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday. It's on Sunday.
I can't believe it's already coming.
Right. It's
Came.
pretty much already here. And, you know, we just wanted to sort of relitigate or I guess rediscuss, you know, this topic of take the knee, you know, because it definitely has evolved. But, you know, with it being the Super Bowl, you know, which is my sport, which of course, you know, Amber, you've already discussed that this is not necessary. You checked out of football.
I
From
checked
where?
out. So just for the viewers' sake, this is a topic that I'm like, Michael, just run with it. But I have checked out of the NFL for at least four years now. Ever since the whole Kaepernick, which we're going to get into it, kind of controversy. I had a bad taste in my mouth with the organization, and I have not really watched since. And I wasn't some huge fanatic. You know, I grew up watching sports, grew up watching the 49ers and the Raiders, go Raiders. But yeah, I mean, I kind of checked out. I kind
Well,
of checked out.
I'm a football fanatic. I love football. Oh my goodness. I played it in high school, grew up watching it, you know, being a, you know, Philadelphia Eagles fan right now. I'm not wearing their jersey because they garbage right now. So, you know, I'm at least going to show some respect, you know, with my water cup here. But, you know, like the Super Bowl, it's the most watched program on television, you know, every year after year. And it's a big spectacle, you know. And of course, we have Patrick Mahomes and against Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What I think the spread is, you know, Kansas City 3.5, which I know you don't understand what that kind of means, you know. But they also talk about the total points being 57.5, you know, as far as the spread. Well, I know you don't have a rooting interest, or do you?
Right.
Do you have a rooting interest? Like I know,
don't.
because you said you may or may not watch it this year.
I don't have a rooting interest, but I'm gonna go with Mahomes simply because he's not Brady. That's all it really took for me. I don't even have anything negative against Brady outside of what we've talked about before. Some of the controversy when he was a Patriot and just the Patriots in general. Their team is kind of a little polarizing. It's like you love them or you literally hate them. So I'm gonna go with Mahomes.
Yeah, and I would say it would be nice to see Andy Reid. He used to coach for the Eagles. You know, it would be nice to see him win. But, you know, Tom Brady, you know, this would be his 10th Super Bowl going to and potentially his 7th Super Bowl championship with another division. You know, he won 6 with AFC, and him taking Tampa Bay, who's also the first Super Bowl contending team to host a Super Bowl in their stadium. If he wins this, it'd be almost like one of those like Jordan moments. I think I told you before, you know, like growing up watching Jordan, even though I'm not a Jordan fan, but still witnessing that greatness. There's something to that, I think, in the sports world. Oh, and and Omar saying that you be giving him the side eye when he be watching NFL. Why?
He's kind of
you be taking his card.
He's kind of resorted to watching it on his phone in the basement. So Kaden and I can watch what we feel like watching.
Oh, doing my man dirty.
You know, he knows. It's like I just, you know, we're gonna get into this, guys. I've always been social justice minded. I've always felt like, you know, I'm tired of supporting big organizations that do not support me or my, you know, my community. And that's just an organization that time and time again has not really been there for the 70% that play, the Black people, the Black men that play. So it is, it's just a tug of war for me.
It is. Well, so, you know, so of course, you know, this is the reason why we wanted to bring this up is because, you know, Super Bowl, and it's also Black History Month. And of course, this is through a cultural lens. So, what else would we talk
And we
about?
wanted something lighter. As you guys will go back and see some of our kind of,
Yeah.
test shows. They've been pretty heavy. And this was kind of like, let's do something light. And this is, he loves sports. I said, go for it. Let's
Mm.
go ahead and do your sports show.
Appreciate it. Just like you just like you putting Omar down in the basement. That ain't right. You just go ahead and get your little sports show.
No,
Go ahead.
Right.
That ain't right.
Oh, my brother. I've always hated Brady. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What's going on, Tris? How you doing? All right. And so of course, with through a cultural lens, we're always doing research and we're always looking at the deeper meaning of things. And we wanted to kind of look at like the first African American Black people that actually got into the league or got paid or something. And these are two names that came up. One was Charles W. Foles, and he was actually the first professional player to be paid, in 1904. So you're talking about in 1904 for the St. Louis, Shelby Blues, in Ohio. He got paid a contract for 2 years to play with the Shelby Blues. And he was actually dominant, during his time in 1904. He was 6 foot, 200 pounds, which is, the average, you can look at him, he looks like the average, what is it? Bolo, the police put out on black. Yeah. That police be putting out on black men, but, he dominated for, a couple years, but then, injuries kind of broke him down a little bit. And then he went on to play in the Negro Baseball League as a catcher. Unfortunately, he passed away at 31. He got pneumonia after playing a baseball game in Chicago. So, just wanted to definitely give him a big ups of, Charles Foles, the first paid in professional football player. And then, of course, Kenny Washington, which I know you did some research on him.
Yeah, a little bit of research on him. He played so Charles Foles played, like you said, in the first professional football league, but it wasn't NFL, right?
It was not NFL. Correct.
Yeah. So he played, I'm trying to get the year here because let's see. So 1933 football was becoming big business, but blacks, of course, were not allowed. So 1933 we were not allowed, which, shocking. It wasn't until 1946 that the color barrier was broken. And that's when he broke the color barrier. So he played, I think he was also in the Hall of Fame, after he played, he entered the Hall of Fame in 1971. But the funny thing about it is that he broke the color barrier, became the first NFL Black player. And then subsequently, he only played for 3 seasons and then subsequently became an LAPD officer after that. So, yeah, some interesting. Yeah, I had no idea about that. So that's interesting that you went from NFL to LAPD. And LAPD, we already know, has a sordid history. So that's interesting.
That is very interesting. We didn't do much research on that part of his life. Hopefully he was a good soldier for the people and for everybody that was out there. And hopefully, nothing sort of came about, through this.
Exactly. And I'm sure he broke color barriers there too. So not only NFL, but I'm pretty sure, around the time he was in LAPD, they probably didn't have a whole lot in the 60s. I can imagine 50s and 60s. So.
And so, to kind of look at these two men and look at where the NFL is now, where you have a Patrick Mahomes, you have a Deshaun Watson, you have like these titans, like before, this was before segregation. You know what I'm saying? Right. Especially, Charles Foles, this is during Reconstruction. You know what I'm saying? And, Kenny Washington, this was in 46. So we're talking about World War II. Both of them, around the World War time. And, exactly. We always hear about Jackie Robinson and the barriers that he broke. But, what about the football players and what they had to do, especially in a much more physical sport, right. Because baseball, you hit a ball, you go around, you get yelled at. But like, you get on a pile, with some other players, ain't no telling what they might be doing, hitting you, in different places, grabbing at you, doing whatever. So they were probably getting brutalized by the fans, some of the coaches, some of their own teammates, and then also
just look at what he's wearing. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of padding happening in Foles' uniform here.
Oh, and
I'm sure it was actually very brutal back then.
Right. Oh, and Miss Candace asked in the chat, no, he was not on an all black team. Actually, they had no all Negro football leagues at that time. So he was actually on a team with white men. He was the only black guy on the team, But the thing is, though, he played 2 years for free from 1902 to 1904, and then got a contract signed to him in 1904 for for what he did, during that time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So, I always like to throw a little Black History facts in there, give some remembrance. But, let's, take it back to TakeAKnee. So, like, TakeAKnee, it's taken a whole new meaning, of itself at this point in time. When you say, it's now, been coupled, I would think, with the Black Lives Matter movement, but it's something that started in sports,
That's right. Yeah, I mean, it definitely has. I mean, it's crossed, different sports just not just football, right? You see it in soccer now. We're seeing it baseball. I mean, it's really just kind of like transcended the sport, where people are just becoming more awakened to what's really happening to the Black community at large. So it's
Right.
definitely like grown legs.
I mean, and to think about, what started with, Kaepernick doing it. Of course, we're getting into him, but then you see like Nancy Pelosi doing it. We have officers of, photos of officers doing it, people doing it with Black Lives Matter protests, soccer players, what it did, in the NBA. And, and of course, it all started with Colin Kaepernick. And the whole thing with Colin Kaepernick is he did it because he wanted to protest the StarSpangled Banner, which is the song that is historically played right before the good old games,
Right.
And that was the main reason why he did it. And we wanted to do a little research, on the StarSpangled Banner, just to kind of find out some information. And
I mean,
just
in conjunction with what's happening in, just our lives as Black people with police brutality. It was in conjunction with, how do I stand up for a song that says how great we are as a country when we don't treat everybody great in this country?
Correct.
So I think, yeah.
Correct. I mean, because this song has been played, before every game, as far as we know about it, it's everywhere, and it was very divided, especially when Kaepernick sat down, or kneeled, and, we'll get into some other people, for this song,
Right.
that we hear about. And the history of it is, of course, Francis Scott Key, wrote it in, what was it, 1814? I believe it was 1814. Yes.
It appeared first in print in 1812.
In 1812, right.
Yeah. And then, because it was during the War of 1812.
Yep, the War of 1812.
So, yeah, 1812.
Which the War of 1812 was between British and Americans, and that's whenever the British was trying to come and take back over America during that war.
Right.
And Francis Scott Key was on a British ship trying to negotiate. Now this is where the history
In Baltimore, in the Baltimore Harbor.
in the Baltimore Harbor, correct, at Fort M. Henry.
Yeah, McHenry.
Mehenry. And so Francis Scott Key got onto a British ship right outside of Baltimore Harbor. But this is where we found out some information that we don't know is true. Yeah, exactly. So we know that he was supposed to be negotiating for the freedom of somebody. You know what I'm saying? One report said it was a doctor. Another one said it was a whole hull full of captured Americans that was at the bottom of a ship. We really don't know, but as far as all the information that we have, he was on a ship, British ship, and they told Francis Scott Key that they're going to bombard Fort M. Henry all night long, and that they need to surrender. And in order for the British to know that they surrendered, they would lower down the flag, and then the British would stop bombarding them with cannonballs and things like that.
Right.
So they kept hitting them, and what eventually happened is when the new morning came and the dust settled, the flag was still there. Say does that star-spangled, And what they found is that, after that entire night of being bombed from these British ships, that they found humans' remains, at the foot of the flag, holding the flag up, So it's a very patriotic sort of moment,
Right.
That happened in real time, as far as all the things that we found out about it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, he was on that ship for a while, because while he was on the ship, he was writing it like just on a notepad or like a piece of paper, which is why, you'll see, I think we've got an image of that on there. But yeah, he coined that after seeing that flag still waving in the air as the bombs are bursting in air, right? He's like, okay, well, we didn't surrender, so let's keep it pushing.
And so, of course, he wrote this song, or this poem, rather. And I believe it was first called M. Henry, right? If I'm not mistaken. I believe it was called, the death, or hold on. Actually,
the Battle of maybe it's like the Battle of McHenry or something along those lines.
Oh, and Lisa, you're right. Nobody knows the entire song because they only sing the fourth part of it. And that's actually one of the things that we actually want to get to is, sort of this meaning behind what the Star-Spangled Banner was even, covering at that time. And so, we have Kaepernick, but the thing is this right here. the defense of Fort McHenry. And this is the verses that they keep out of, what we know of as the Star-Spangled Banner. And I'm trying to see if I can find a better copy of it. It is, no refuge could save the hurling and slave. Now, you said you looked at what hurling was, right?
Yeah, so hurling is basically a servant. So they're just basically saying a low-class white person, a hurling, and then of course the slave was, the black slaves at the time.
Mm-hmm. From the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave, and the Star-Spangled Banner in triumph doth wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Does that give you goosebumps?
No, it doesn't. So we've discussed this particular verse because this verse obviously is fraught with controversy about his intentions, right? Like what is he intending to mean here? So if you know a little bit about the War of 1812, the British kind of offered the slaves an opportunity, right? An opportunity to come over there once, just to surrender fighting for the U.S. and come to the UK. Am I not mistaken?
Or to go to like the Caribbean. They either go to the UK or because I think they some of them went to Trinidad, like the area of Trinidad in the Caribbean. Mm-hmm.
So essentially, this was kind of like, are you really being treated in any sort of way that is beneficial to your life in America? I'm pretty sure you're not. So why don't you come over here? Like I said earlier, come over here to death row, like a Suge Knight moment. They're not treating you well over there. Let's go ahead and go somewhere else. We'll help you guys basically find your freedom. We'll help you get away from the American soldiers. So I think this was kind of a slight from Francis Scott Key, kind of basically saying, you can't run. Like there's no refuge for you. There's no refuge for the poor. There's no refuge for the slave. No matter who offers you this refuge, the grave is what's going to happen essentially.
And a lot of people have debated of what this means, but I think we come to the same conclusion. Basically, it's just that with the British offering that they would give freedom to slaves, and actually they said that around 4,000 slaves escaped between Maryland and Virginia to go join the British side. But of course, there were some black people who also fought on the American side as well.
Right.
And he wrote this song particularly to let them know that we're not going to lose, and you will be slaves. And there was also some other key information that we found out about Mr. Francis Scott Key. Would you like to tell the people about his wealth?
So he came from a very wealthy Maryland slave owner family. So while there's some information saying he didn't believe necessarily in the act of owning people, of being a slave owner, he also didn't believe in like fraternizing and being neighbors with black people either. So he was okay with, abolishing slavery just as long as all the black people went back to Africa, literally. He did not want them anywhere near his great American neighborhood, his great American cities. He didn't want them in Baltimore. He just thought at this point, maybe it is inhumane to own people, but I'd rather let them go and then just get a boat and just take them back because they don't need to be here.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, he was the attorney general, he was, he made, his wealth off of, slavery. And so he definitely, like you said, he wasn't against it. He was against the mistreatment of the slaves, but he fought as an attorney general for the United States against the abolishment of slavery. And as you said, that I think it's modern day Liberia is where he literally would, he would rather see us go than to see us free.
Yeah. Don't want to be neighbors with y'all. Y'all can go. I don't like it. I don't like it, but y'all just please go.
Y'all can bounce.
My presence.
Yeah, exactly. And so, to think about that, it's like, well, shouldn't this,
wasn't until morning
be done now? Shouldn't we now look at the song in protest? But then
examine it.
But there's been years and years and years of examples, of, people who have stood up, for, stood up, or sat down or did some type of protest, like right here. We're going to talk about the three most notable, which would be the 1963 Olympic Games, where Tommy Smith and John Carlos took first and third place respectively in the 200-meter dash, and they stand here with their fists risen in the air while the Star-Spangled Banner is playing. And of
San
course,
Jose
this shot
State,
is
all my San Jose State people. That's my mom's alma mater.
oh, is
Okay.
it?
Oh yeah, and I know Tobiah, he went to San Jose State. Yeah, so yeah, we have some San Jose State people in here.
Okay. And of course, that was big, and that it was so iconic. That image was so iconic. I mean,
Absolutely.
do you remember when you first learned about this? Because I didn't learn about this until I got into college.
It was college for me too, actually. And then, of course, it made my heart swell up because it was San Jose State, where I was
Mm-hmm.
born in San Jose. So I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, we do have some deep, activists, civil rights kind of roots in Northern California. So it was definitely cool to learn about this. But yeah, same. I was probably junior year
Mm-hmm.
in undergrad before I
Mm-hmm.
learned about them.
Mm-hmm. And the crazy thing about what happened with them is that they won, and they did it. And don't forget, this was during the Summer Olympics, so of 1968. This was right after Martin Luther King got assassinated.
Right.
Remember, he got
Right.
assassinated February 4th. So
Yeah.
in solidarity, with the Black Panther movement sort of going,
Mm-hmm.
this was like their symbol of like, this country does not, stand with us. This
Right.
country doesn't want anything, to do with us. So we're going to stand up to it. And they pretty much got vilified for it.
Yeah, they lost basically everything. I mean, I think their family kind of just dissolved. I mean, everything was ripped from them like a, tablecloth on a table. Like a lot of bad things started happening as, from them standing up.
Yeah, it is so sad. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
the second one that we would have is would be, of course, the Mahmoud. I can't. Go ahead.
Mahmoud Abdul Rauf.
Yes. And I remember him playing too, and I can
Mm-hmm.
never pronounce his name, so brother, I do apologize if you do see this. But I remember he sat down during the national anthem in 1996, whenever he converted to Islam,
and
because
I
his
saw him
name
do
was
it.
Chris Jackson. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and he got suspended, and then he eventually stood up and prayed, in
An Islamic
silence.
prayer. Yeah, he did an Islamic prayer during, I think, what team was he on at that time? Because he had bounced around a little bit. Maybe Denver.
Denver Nuggets.
Something.
He was on the
he
Denver Nuggets team.
And the coach said, listen, you can't sit, at least stand. And at that point, he decided, I'll stand, but I'm not saying the national anthem, nor am I putting my hand on my heart. I will do an Islamic prayer instead. And that's what he did. And he paid the price too. Once again, he paid the price. He had whole compound in Mississippi burned to the ground. People are upset about this idea of a individual not swelling up with joy during the national anthem and feeling this sense of pride. Even though it's literally a personal choice. And one thing people also have to realize is that the national anthem became our national anthem during Woodrow Wilson, was it?
Oh yes, we didn't even go over that. Yes, you're absolutely yes.
Yeah, Woodrow
Bring that up.
Wilson. So that was like 1930. Was it 33?
I have it right here. It is 1916. Woodrow
Okay,
Wilson.
1916.
Woodrow Wilson wrote an executive order to make it the national anthem, and then Congress in 1931 made
That's
it
what it is,
into
Congress.
Correct.
The national anthem. But prior to Woodrow Wilson kind of like making it our nation's song, people were like singing this song during sporting events and during military events, but they also were using it as like a drinking song. I mean, it really wasn't as serious as our country takes it now. The song, which is kind of one of those things, which like after a game, let's go get a beer. Like it was very light. It was a light song during competitions and stuff like that. So it became serious when it was passed in Congress.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago. We have people alive still that were born probably around that time. So
Exactly. No, and you bring up a good point. Yeah, and I think that was something that kind of slipped as far as talking about how even the national anthem even came to be in sports. Like how it become a staple, and it all started because I have that research as well. I know the World Series between the Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs. In 1918, and this was during World War I.
I think even Babe Ruth may have
Babe
played.
Babe Ruth was on that team. Yep, correct. Babe Ruth was on that team. So in 1918, the Red Sox and the Chicago Cubs played in the World Series, and in one of the games in Chicago during the 7th inning stretch,
That's right.
the band played the song while people were standing up.
It was a military band. Yeah,
it was a military band that was people were stretching, and they just started singing along. And of course, this is during World War I. A lot of depression. And then this just kind of lifted up the people. Well, the very next day, a sports writer wrote an article not about the game, but about the people's response to the Star-Spangled Banner. When the series moved to Boston, then the Boston started playing it prior to the games. But between both games, I believe Boston won this series. Oh no, I'm sorry. This was Chicago won this series. This is the one that they had like a long time ago. And then it just started picking up steam, as far as being played in professional sports, all around before games. And then after 9/11, then it just was played before like high school events and college events and all these other things because, the song sort of just talks about this patriotism that, we're supposed to have, for the flag.
Right. Exactly. That's it. Yeah, that's right. So it kind of morphed. It morphed into, like I said, something that was kind of like this jovial pub song into, this how, this very serious song that we all should respect and not question the motives of the writer or the full all the verses. And, we're not supposed to question it. We're supposed to sing it because we're Americans and we're supposed to stand and put our hand over our heart. And that's that. And people, that's how we get to the Kaepernick thing where it's like, he's so disrespectful because he's criticizing our national anthem. How dare you?
Yeah. And of course, Kaepernick, then he comes around and then he, 2016, then he takes a knee, and protest. And of course he says the reason why he did it is because of Black people getting murdered on the streets. And of course, this is sort of mid Black Lives Matter, I would say, right? Because Black Lives Matter.
Because Black Lives Matter was mainly like a Trayvon Martin. It was like during the Trayvon Martin
that was 2012.
Trial.
That was 2012.
Yeah. So they started kind of like brewing after that, really after the verdict and just how that whole trial went. So he started taking, well, first of all, he was sitting, right? He was sitting down during the national anthem at one point, and then he had a veteran friend, I believe, that said, it would be actually more, it'd be a little bit more professional and like respectful if you actually just at least kneeled during the national anthem. So that's where the take a knee comes from. He wanted to be respectful to his friend. Didn't want to show that he's being disrespectful to veterans or anybody. He just, just didn't like how the country handled, race matters, essentially. Cultural matters, yeah.
And, the whole thing with the Colin Kaepernick, like the way that they responded to it,
I know.
The whole response to it was just out of bounds, and because for 4 years, Black Lives Matter has been out there, and of course Tabitha Rice, Michael Brown, countless other people have been murdered during, I think Chandra Bland was even during that time. Yeah, there was so many more people. And so of course, he talks, right here, oppressing of Black people, and he wanted to use this platform, just like Tommy Smith and John Carlos before him, and Abdul Rahul, and other people. Now, of course, we're only talking about these three because these were the biggest ones, but there are countless people who have protested the flag, during this time. And for him to take this stance, and the thing is, he was a good football player, though. He was not a bad football player. He went to the Super Bowl. And lost to the Ravens, which I saw that there was a Go Ravens somewhere here in the chat. Somebody said Go Ravens.
Omar. That'll be Omar.
Oh, that'd be okay. Yeah, they took it home. They definitely took it home that time. But I remember that's when Beyonce performed at that game. She shut down halftime. It was like an hour delay for the power to cut on because she literally shut down the Super Bowl. And Kaepernick almost came back late in that game and beat them. But for him, and then but then he had like a couple of seasons where he wasn't that good. He lost his coach. A lot of players left that team. He did actually go to the NFC Championship the year after the Super Bowl, and then he got signed a $100 million contract to be a franchise quarterback. And then his numbers just sort of went down, and then he had a surgery, and then he didn't play in the preseason, and that's whenever he started kneeling. And then he kneeled in 2016. It wasn't until this guy that's on screen right now said something. So 2016, we still had Obama. But then whenever this guy went up there and talked about we need to cut whoever is not on the field with their heart on their hand, it just ignited. It just ignited. And then it just became this whole divide where it wasn't even about the message that Colin Kaepernick was trying to talk about. It was about him being disrespectful to the flag. Like, how do you feel about that whole narrative of being disrespectful to the flag?
Well, as we talked about the media literacy conversation, how false information, exaggerated information can get skewed in the media, and those that don't do their research run with whatever narrative is being put out there. And during Trump's campaign, he was very, we we had 4 years of this mess. So during his campaign towards presidency, everything was divisive. It was these people that are kneeling. They need to be. If you don't like it here, go back to your other country. Go back to your this basically go back to Africa, right?
Go back to Africa.
Like he wouldn't say that, but that's what he was insinuating. Go back
Right.
to Africa because we all know who plays in the NFL and we all know what race Colin Kaepernick is, what what cultural background he has. So he created this stir which really ignited the right, these fringe people, honestly, because then you turn and see like Laura Ingraham, throw the football, stop talking. She said about LeBron, and she, all these kind of like right-wing people telling these athletes that your voice doesn't matter, just throw the ball, dribble the ball, whatever. So everybody started kind of snowballing into, what do you have to complain about? You're a millionaire, you're playing a sport, be quiet, like seen and not heard, like we do not want to talk to you. So it really created this narrative of like Colin Kaepernick was really like a pariah on almost, right? Just this simple thing that he was doing prior to Trump taking notice that really was going unnoticed, nobody was really causing a stir, turned into things that he never said. He never disrespected the soldiers, but that was the narrative. And so people were saying, you're disrespectful to these men and women who are fighting for our country. You're disrespect. It's like, that's not what he's saying. That's not what but you've taken something, twisted it, media ran with it. And this is what people who do not research have the belief system because of that.
Yeah. And so what do we have in the chat? It seems like the chat is pretty engaged in this. What do we have in the chat? We have, Lisa was talking about how they took Tommy and John Carlos's medals. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't remember that. Yep. Yeah, I mean they just got ruined. They really did. We should do a show just on them alone. Shoot, because like they really did.
Right. Anybody else in the chat say anything?
Yeah, my mom is right. There'd be no sports without black athletes, and that's what I said. Before we got on, I said, what would the NFL do if all the black NFL players decided we don't like what's going on, we are not playing? That game would tank. Okay,
it wouldn't be it would be hard to be watchable.
Yeah,
it'd be hard to be watchable. It'd be hard to it just wouldn't be watchable. Most people don't know that the playing of the anthem is paid for by the U.S. Armed Forces. It's about $40 million a year. Really, Miss Carter? Oh, okay. Tobiah, okay. Oh wow, yeah, they were blackballed. Yes, Miss Candace, they were, and and it's just 100%. Unfortunate, and of course that's giving you the history by Donald Trump saying, that they need to get out of here, like you said, they need to go back to Africa. Sounds just like Francis Scott Key.
Yes, it does.
Which, once again, to me, I think that this, just like how we're taking down these statues, and I told you this before, how we're renaming these schools, that are named after these Confederate generals and known white supremacists. We probably need to reevaluate this national anthem because of the roots of it and the original lyrics of it. I think that at this point in time, it does need to be taken out. And right now, Lift Every Voice and Sing needs to be signed in executive order to be the national anthem. Come on, Uncle Joe. Let's get every.
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Let's get every voice and sing up on the. I mean, they already said they put Harriet on the 20. Which that's the episode.
Been saying that.
Apparently, in his executive order, in one of his executive orders, he's moving forward with putting Harriet on the 20. Which when that happens, that will definitely be a future episode that we will definitely have to cover.
And that's interesting. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, it's.
Let's see if it happens. That's all I want to say. I'm not going to talk on it until I see it happen.
Right. But to kind of go back to this, Kaepernick. But what he did is he pretty much through the sports world created this movement where then athletes from other teams, athletes from other sports, started really kind of gravitating to this, taking a knee. I mean, even basketball, So for anybody who watched basketball, you remember where they had the bubble. But then they had Black Lives Matter written on the court. They had jerseys, where people could have say her name or say their name, and different slogans and things like that, and that was, of course, in the wake of George Floyd. But, it was definitely inspired by, Colin Kaepernick and, Abdul Rauf and the Tommy Smiths and things like that, and, a lot of athletes, still won't stand, right now. And once again, it just became this whole new symbol, that just became, it just became a movement within itself, almost just like
Right.
the Black Lives Matter movement.
It did. And like the one thing about Kaepernick, which I've been learning about, is that one of the main reasons why we don't see him much, and this is maybe a little
Mm-hmm.
jumping a gun, but we don't see him much or hear him much because of what Trump did, that he
Yeah.
misconstrued the few things that he did say
Yeah.
or that he posted on social media.
Mm-hmm.
So even when he was GQ Man of the Year, I think that was like 2018, he was
Right. Yep.
GQ Man of the Year.
Yep.
He gave no interview.
Mm.
He gave no interview because he said, I will not speak to the media because of how my message keeps getting warped.
Really?
Because of what we're trying to do keeps getting warped. Yeah. So that just tells you, it's like the media, he's like, I'll do this, I'll do the photo shoot, but you will not get an interview from me because I do not like how I'm being portrayed and how this movement is being portrayed.
Very interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So almost that is been co-opted.
Exactly. That's right.
Okay. I know that he had something where he had like this blog where he had like a lot of famous writers and stuff with Level abolish the now I can't remember what the name of it is. Can you remember what the name of it is?
I have it. I haven't taken a look at all the pieces of here.
Okay. But if you just go to Colin Kaepernick, it's on his Twitter.
Abolition for the people.
Abolition for the people. Abolition for the people.
Kaepernick Publishing and Level. Yeah. So it's basically them talking about like policing and prison reform. So it's a bunch of thought leaders, professors, civil rights activists, just anybody who's interested in seeing reform. They have these like individual little pods of what reform they want to focus on. Like one I think is about, let's see, like the myth of the good cop. So that's like Dr. Mark Anthony Neal. I think he's on CNN a lot. And then just talking about like the SWAT team and some of the different things that, these no-knock warrants and how we need to get rid of some of those things. So he's been quietly doing things, because that was one thing I was wondering. I'm like, what is he doing? Because outside of that, that kind of media blitz he had about, training and then potentially getting back on a team and having some teams look at him, I really haven't heard much from him. Was that last year or 2019? That was 2019, I think.
It was 2019, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
I haven't heard much outside of like the Nike deal and then him potentially working out with some teams and, maybe getting a contract, which didn't happen, obviously. But he's been quiet, but I think it's mainly he's just doing things in silence at this point. Right.
Just moving things in silence. Yeah. And I mean, which is probably a good move for him, because I mean, I think, with all the ads and things that he had, going on for him, like actually, let me go ahead and, like this right here, whenever he signed with Nike, and like how they did that campaign. And basically they made $146 million, off of him. Now he was already signed with Nike, but when their valuation went up after they announced that they were going to have a brand built around him and hit the movement that he was doing, which is kind of strange because Nike has a contract with the NFL. That's who makes the jerseys. The majority of the shoes. Right. So it was, like this, shoe company sort of going against, pretty much their cash cow, which is
their best interest. Yeah,
which is the NFL.
They were stepping out on a limb.
They were stepping out on a limb, but that icon jersey that he has sold out within hours. The $300 joint sold out within hours. Like it's always on back order. The crazy thing is whenever JayZ happened to be wearing that jersey in 2017 on Saturday Night Live, and then JayZ is now producing the halftime show for the NFL because he had a position, right? Didn't JayZ get a position with the NFL?
He was like some sort of like social, I want to say some sort of communications coordinator or something along those lines, something having to do with his actual field, right? So something having to do with like the music or connecting the culture to the conglomerate, the NFL conglomeracy. And I know when that kind of partnership happened, people were kind of side-eyeing him, like, you're doing a deal with the devil. But to him, it was like, it's a seat at the table. It's a seat at the table, so I can kind of maybe push some things forward, which, we've talked about. Has things really been pushed forward with the NFL? I mean, where they're not hiring a bunch of black coaches, they're not hiring a bunch of black coordinators, not hiring a whole lot of black, talent.
As far as in the upper seats, like like GMs and scouts. That's right. Well, there's no owners, but yet the league is, as you have already previously said, 70% black. 70% of the players on the field is black. And now you said that you stopped watching it because of the Kaepernick, situation, right? And I know a lot of people did, during that time.
Yeah.
But then, this year after they played the wild card games, actually the NFL has not been hurting that much. Now, of course, this can all be looked through a different lens because, all content's sort of risen up because of the pandemic. But,
Right.
from 2016, whenever Kaepernick started, to 2020, they've only dropped about 10% in ratings,
Which is not bad. I mean, that's not bad at all.
That's not bad at all. But, the glaring thing is that Sunday Night Football is going to be, for 10 consecutive years, the number one primetime program on television. Now, they're considering it. Nelson is considering Sunday Night Football as far as primetime programming. So, like your Game of Thrones, your The Undoings,
Right.
SNL, and this sort of content that people love. The TV shows that me and you even talked about, the Lovecraft Countries, things like
Right.
that. They're putting
Right.
NFL up here. So if you look at it through sort of that lens of like, this is primetime programming because it's getting eyeballs, 70% of the people that's the actors in this are black. But yet you're going to treat them the way, because I mean the NFL has known to want to amend the kneeling rule. It was
Right.
one time, you just go into the locker room. Don't kneel on the field.
Exactly.
When it's all about black issues, when some of these kids did not come from good upbringings, or have seen police brutality up in front of them and wanted to see a change, and actually doing giving making foundations, foundations and
Right.
nonprofits and things like that for their neighborhoods. And, so for the NFL to be such a cash cow and to treat their lead stars like this, I think it's wrong. And I think a person like you to not watch it, I think you have some validity on that.
Yeah, I remember there was a little bit of a movement, like right when Kaepernick didn't resign,
Mm-hmm.
and people were like, "Let's just like not watch." And there was kind of like a movement, like, "Don't watch the NFL, like boycott the NFL. We're not
Mm-hmm.
watching."
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like, I don't want to say I jumped on that, but just reading about what was happening, and then of course, just the vitriolic words and just twisting of the Trump administration and just the Trump followers. I'm like, this is not okay, especially when you've got the NFL, like you said, who the majority of their players are black. They're allowing this man and the media to kind of like morph this movement and this peaceful protest into something it isn't. It's something violent. It wasn't even violent. Okay. We're talking about
Mm-mm.
somebody for a minute and a half, 2 minutes kneeling,
Mm-hmm.
and
Is
a
it?
whole 90-minute or a little longer, game. Like, it's unbelievable that it came from this all the way to that, and people just ran with you, disrespectful, you're this and that. And then of course with the Nike deal, you remember people were on social media burning their Nikes,
Mm-hmm.
or I will never buy your brands again. And they did, even though they made a lot of money with his campaign, they did have a little dip right after that. I think it was like
Mm-hmm.
a 30% dip after, because of people feeling like, oh, I don't want anything to do with Nike if you're going to support this person. But that's
Right.
because of the narrative, right?
Mm-hmm.
So people were just like, oh, I heard that he hates veterans. That's literally probably the narrative that they got in
Mm-hmm.
some of the news
Mm-hmm.
programs that they watched. So if you hear that, black or white, oh, you hate veterans? And
Oh,
because
yes.
there's plenty of black veterans out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hear that, I'm not supporting Nike. Why would you support somebody who hates people that are, giving up life and limb to keep this country safe?
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand why people are like, I'm not supporting that. But again, the media literacy component, nobody was fact checking. Nobody was going back and seeing what his actual message was. Nobody was
Mm-hmm.
actually listening to some of the interviews that he gave, or went to his website even to see what he was actually like, not standing, kneeling
Mm-hmm.
for.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that, it's just in of itself is like really frustrating, because this is what happens with all movements throughout history, as we've talked about. It's like you got the Black Panther movement. That's they're militant black extremists. That's like the new term now, right? So if anybody, the Black Lives Matter movement is now a black extremist group.
Mm-hmm.
When
Mm-hmm.
all we're asking for is, can we get police reform?
Right.
Can we actually prosecute and try these officers who are killing people who are just eating French fries in their car because they're afraid it's a gun, but it's really some McDonald's fries? Like, we're literally asking for the bare minimum here. We're not asking for 40 acres and a meal, which we should be asking for. Look, some people are,
Student
but
loan debt.
the primary, okay? So the primary premise of this whole movement is, We just want you to fairly try people who kill us.
Mm-hmm.
We want to get a shot if we're, convicted, or if we're, arrested for something. We
Mm-hmm.
want to get a fair trial. We don't want things to be morphed. That's literally all we're asking for. That's it. But somehow that got media morphed that into black extremists or extreme. Every time
Mm-hmm.
black people have an issue about something or have a grievance about something very real and tangible,
Mm-hmm.
we're extreme and
Mm-hmm.
must be done away with.
And just like just recently, a 9-year-old girl in New York,
Which I can't watch.
got pepper sprayed while 9 officers stood around. That was this weekend. that or the beginning of this week. It is heartbreaking. When for the people who've seen it, you know how it is. If you haven't seen it and you're not ready to see it, but it's the same thing. It's the same story. It's the same story. Way before, of
right.
that the same narrative that we keep pushing. Please stop beating us and our children and murdering us on the streets for no reason.
We just need common sense when it comes to black people, because for some reason everybody loses it when it comes to us. It's like, she's 9. What is she going to do to 9 of y'all, 10 of you, whatever, however many officers? Like, this is similar to that case with the little girl who was arrested. She was like in second or third grade. I think she was arrested, if not last year, maybe the year prior, for having a tantrum in like second or third grade. And the video was her literally being put in the back of a police car.
Yeah.
She's 7 or 8. Now, can you imagine if they would have done that to any other demographic, if they put a little blonde girl who's having a tantrum in a police car and arrested her? Like, we're just asking for just normalcy, decency. And for some reason that is very hard for some people to process and understand.
Yes, very hard.
That's it.
It doesn't feel like much. I mean,
It doesn't.
And it feels like our shows, sort of have the same theme, but like, I guess it's just like we're just unearthing more and more that this is just some bull, like it's not hard. It's not difficult. It's human. It's just really just when it comes down to just human rights. And we continuously don't get the same human rights as other people do. I see the chat has a couple things going on. Tobias says racism has worked for centuries for them and they continue to use it until it has no more power.
That's right.
But when is that?
He's right. He said he's emotionally removed from the NFL, and that's how I've been feeling. It's like, my dad and my brother love it, and I don't have anything against anybody that loves that sport. I have nothing against, because you can love the sport and not. It's like you can. Well, it's kind of hard because you can hate the crime, love the person, hate their crime or something. Right. But it's just hard for me knowing that, like I said, it's like the simple things that we do always get just kind of blown out of proportion. Meanwhile, it's like, I hate to keep going back to January 6th and the storming of the Capitol. It's like, just think about people's reaction to people with automatic weapons on federal grounds. Nobody even blinked, but you literally want to cast aside a black man for kneeling. You want him off the earth for kneeling. It's like, it's just doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's the status quo, like we've talked about. This is going to be probably a theme with a lot of our shows. It's like the status quo has a vision, has an image of what America needs to be, and this is Hoover. We've talked about Hoover before. He had an image of what America stood for and what America looked like, and it never included us. Never included us. We were never a part of that image or vision. So any major organization that is faced with some sort of backlash as a result of civil rights and treating, your Black and your Asian and your Hispanic employees equal to, the majority, the white employees or the white masses, is like, clutch pearls. Why would we do such a thing like that? Like that is, the premise of America. The status quo is first, and you know who the status quo is, and everybody else just get your little piece and please be happy with that, and please stop making a big stink about it. Right.
Like the nerve, because. And once again, sports news. See, that's why I don't know why y'all don't be paying attention, to sports, because it has some drama. So like Brett Favre just recently came out against Deshaun Watson, who's a black quarterback, and told him like, oh, he's making all this money. He just needs to be quiet. But yet you have Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz, and Matthew Stafford, all white quarterbacks, who are all demanding trades from their teams, and people are trying to figure out like how can that work. And actually, Matthew Stafford and another quarterback, Jared Goff, got swapped, in a trade. Nobody said anything, but when Deshaun Watson, whenever he speaks up, this is 2021, when he speaks up about his organization and the dysfunction that's happening, then you have, people out here commenting on him of, once again, shut up and dribble, which is a documentary series on Showtime as well that talks about this issue.
That's good to know. Mm-hmm. That's good to know. Mm-hmm. And exactly. Because our race is weaponized. Mm-hmm. So like, we're just not allowed to have any grievances or any kind of like constructive criticism. Right. And that's just on even just on an individual non-sports level. Like if anybody's ever worked at, a predominantly white organization and, you're having your review and you might not, like something, you might push back on something. I mean, it literally becomes a whole ordeal. I went through that before where me just saying, I think that's actually not accurate. I kind of did this and kind of gave my points and it became I'm aggressive. And that's just with, unfortunately, all of us, whenever we have any sort of, if we stick up for ourselves, number one, or if we have any sort of like constructive criticism about the organization that we're working for, our performance, whatever that might be, it's like you're coming at me. The Karen comes out of people when we start doing these things. It's exhausting.
The fatigue.
It's very, very much so.
The fatigue, man. And Lisa, she says in the chat, the teen who got slammed to the ground and knocked her out at the high school last week. Yeah, I remember that. It was like a correction officer took a black girl from Florida and grabbed her behind her legs and like body slammed her. And you could hear her head hit the ground. And once again,
that was recently because that's happened. I've seen a video. I saw a video of the same thing happening to a black girl by a white campus officer at a high school. This was like 2015, 2016. The same exact thing.
Same exact thing. Yeah. So nobody's reading the room.
Lord.
Nobody's reading the room. Nobody's reading the room. Of course, I think we should probably just do what Aisha says. She refuses to admit to figure, attempts to figure them out and how they think. You know what? Maybe.
It's like, I don't want it, and I don't paint anybody with a broad stroke, but it's like people just need to stop pretending now. I think 2020 was like the year of we need to stop pretending.
Yes. Because
we've talked a lot about how we were insulated. Like if you were born, like him and I were born in the early 80s. So it's like if you're born in the early 80s, between like the early, maybe late 70s to even like the early 90s, you have this like weird insulated kind of upbringing. Even if the upbringing, you were in a majority white area or majority black area, we still had this false sense of like safety of like, well, there was no wartime. No war was really happening. People were at least pretending to be civil to each other. Of course, you had your 92 riots with Rodney King. You had these kind of like different, uprisings happening throughout, these major cities or smaller cities. But for the most part, you go to school, you're friends with, your white friend Timmy, your friend, you kind of, have this false sense of like, I don't want to say colorblindness, but that's kind of what the 80s almost painted it to be. Everybody's the same now. We're, we got a black girl on Saved by the Bell and, and
Lisa
we got a black, Lisa, you got this. And so it just had this false sense, but it really kind of like the 2000s, I say the 2010s kind of shook us up and was like, no, camera phones kind of said, everybody in your bubble, it's time to get popped. That is not how life is, nor has it ever been. And I think most of us knew that, but it was kind of like, let's just pretend that it's normal and regular for everybody. But it wasn't. In 2010s, with the cell phone cameras and everything, we started to see people were getting killed still. I mean, it was a lot of modern day lynching happening still. So
yeah, and it's unfortunate. So hopefully, we can see a better day. But or at least go down guns blazing.
I think we're headed in the right direction, but it's gonna. I don't know if we're gonna be alive when we really have that. Any sort of semblance of equality.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be something we have to talk about. But one of the things that I brought up to you yesterday is, of course, the Super Bowl. They're always good for prop bets. You can prop bet like how long the StarSpangled Banner is going to be saying, who's going to score first. Are they going to show the president and how many times? You can make a bet not only on the spread of the game, on anything. And so this came courtesy of Sports Illustrated. It was a fan post from the Cincinnati Bengals, and they got it off of another site. And basically, they are trying to profit off of the protest. So right now, you can put a bet down on will any player kneel on the sideline during the anthem. So, yes is plus 1,200, so 12 to 1 odds, or no is minus 5,000, so that's 1 to 50 odds. As you can see, just doing a little bit of math, if you put down $100 saying that one player will kneel during the Super Bowl, you will pocket $1,200. If you say no, you only win two. So basically, what that is saying is Vegas feels that a player will not kneel. And of course, the other bet is will they raise a fist during the national anthem on the sideline? And of course, plus, 8 to 1 odds, which if you say yes, it's $800 to your pocket. So really, the big money is on the yes for the kneeling. If you want to win something, but they saying the money line right now is no player will will kneel, period. And there's a chance that somebody may throw up a fist. What do you think? If you were a betting woman, what would you say? And I think maybe we should keep up on this so we can check in with everybody. And also I want to hear from the chat. Chat, what do y'all think about if y'all was to put something? Would you say yes on the kneel, no on the kneel, yes on the fist, or no on the fist?
Well, let me first by saying this is a bet that's in terrible taste. It's in poor taste. But anybody who's been to Vegas, anybody who has played the lottery of any sort, they bet on everything. Okay. I'm pretty sure they probably bet on what nail polish Melania Trump was going to wear. Probably. I'm sure that was a bet at some point. But it's like they literally bet on everything. But if I were to bet on this, which I wouldn't, because it's capitalized.
It's in bad taste. It is. I agree with you. It is totally bad taste. It's totally bad taste.
I think because we have a little bit of, again, because we have Biden and Kamala, we have a little bit of semblance of normalcy right now. I would gather that there'd be kneeling over fists right now because there's not a whole lot of pushback from our nation's capital like we were getting before. So I'll just say, I'll say if it was, it'd be more kneeling. If I had to bet.
Yeah, I know fist has been something that a lot of players have done on the sideline in remembrance of it. What you laughing at? Oh, Diamond.
I'm just laughing at the whole bet. No, I'm laughing at the whole bet idea. It's just.
We'll see. I think Diamond, she got a good. Can we all do the Wall Street thing? Let's all bet on one and get a player to make us some money. So basically, we say we put it in the yes.
Let's all get together
and be like, Tariq Hill, brother, through the social media, you got to kneel. You've got to kneel for us. Oh, that's hilarious.
Right.
That is hilarious.
That would be funny.
I almost want to put down a couple shekels on the yes. For some reason, I just feel like with everything, especially with, the stadiums now having in racism, in the end zones, on the back of the helmets, different things like that. I just have a feeling now they might not show it, but that's the only way that you're going to win the prop bet. But somebody probably take a picture of it or something like that. There'll be people actually at the Super Bowl in the stands. I think they're doing like 25% capacity.
Okay, that's good.
And of course, while we're talking about this movement, and of course, brought up the good old prop bet. But, one notable thing, we talked about taking the knee and it being, part of this whole movement, and there's also a notable thing that happened also that we found out. And that is the most recent Nobel Peace Prize. Could you tell us a little bit about the Nobel Peace Prize, what they done recently?
Cool information. The Black Lives Matter movement was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize, which we were talking about. This might be the first time a movement. I mean, obviously it's an organization as well now, but it's a movement was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize.
The Black Lives Matter movement has been
kind of unheard of, kind of unprecedented, because it's not like the UN or something along those, the Red Cross, something a little bit more tangible with a little bit more specific customer clientele, I guess. Black Lives Matter movement is literally that, a movement with like individual kind of like regional offices kind of working in, independently, but still with the same general goal of the main organization. But yeah, they were nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. Awesome.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then Stacey Abrams, who was really pivotal in Georgia. I mean, I think she kind of helped out in Georgia with the voter turnout. I mean, Georgia just showed out, and I think she was definitely pivotal in that. And she's also an author of books under a pseudonym. She's got a lot going on. I think she's fantastic. So she's also nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize. So these are cool nominations.
These are, and I think that's, it's so cool, that they got nominated. You know, especially Black Lives Matter. So I looked it up, and it looked like there was 24 organizations that have been nominated, you know, for
Okay.
the Nobel Peace Prize, but it's been like the Red Cross, you know, or
Right.
the UN. You know,
Right.
these organizations that go out to the people and, you know, try and help out the unfortunate, you know, there.
Right. Like a
And
very specific goal with a specific, like I said, not to say clientele, customer, but a specific
uh,
group that they're servicing.
they're
They're
servicing, correct,
helping.
correct.
Yeah.
It's like hunger, environmental, you
Right.
know, even some genocidal things, you know, people have been
Mm-hmm.
nominated for, you know, and acts, you know, but a movement, you know, like they're actually nominating it as as a global network. That's how the Nobel Prize, the person who did it, is, because Black Lives Matter has hit Africa, it has hit Europe, it has hit
Mm-hmm.
China, it has hit the
Mm-hmm.
world, you know,
That's
as
right.
far as you know, the reach that it has. And of course, you know, Stacey Abrams, you know, I mean, she was huge. You know, of
Yeah.
one thing, should she be governor? I would kind of say probably
Yeah.
she should be, but
Yeah.
she's not. But as opposed to her tucking her tail like some other politicians that, you know, when they lose, you know, you
Yeah.
don't hear from
Pushing.
them again unless
That's right.
they, you know, getting arrested, you know, for
Yeah.
GWI or something.
Hopefully 45 will do the same. We don't need to hear from him again.
Never again. Never, ever again. You know, but you know, for her to sort of pick it up and then, you know, 2 years to really mobilize Georgia. I mean, like she helped turn Georgia blue.
Yeah.
Georgia is like historically
Notoriously
red,
red. Yep.
like
Notoriously.
notoriously red. So with
Yeah.
her efforts and her coalition and people, you know, I mean, I just think it's awesome, especially in this awakening, you know, that the world is recognizing, you
That's
know,
right.
the things that, you know, African Americans have done, you know, not just for ourselves here, but then how we're inspiring the world. And I think, you know, especially Black Lives Matter, you know, hopefully they give it to the three young ladies who created Black Lives Matter back in
Right.
2012, right?
Yeah.
That would be my hope, you know, because I mean, since they consider it a global network, I guess you can't give it to one person. So I would think that those
Right.
would at least be the three
It would be
representatives. What do you
them.
think?
Yeah, it would be them. I mean, that makes the most sense. It would be them. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, they started this. They started the organization. They've mobilized in various cities or helped mobilize in various cities. So it would definitely be to them, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so cool.
Okay, yeah. Oh, and hold on. I think we got some people that. So we got a couple Black Fists in here. I think some people taking
Okay.
some money, taking the money on the Black
Okay.
Fist. Okay, yeah, yeah. Aisha done put up the Black Fist.
Okay.
Um,
Tristan did. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
Lisa
I'm okay with
says she'll
that.
kneel before the fist because that caused more of an uproar. That's what I'm talking about, Lisa. Go ahead and get
Yeah.
militant, girl. Get militant on.
Yeah. Go ahead. I just think that we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
Let's come back next week and let's talk and see what we saw.
Right.
I think it's gonna be more kneeling. I would love to see a fist, but I think it's gonna be more kneeling. We'll see.
Right. Yeah. I think it's gonna be a combination of both. I think it's gonna be so. You
Right.
know, now as we come to a close, you know, this, you know, we just want to give our final thoughts. You know, what are your final perceptions of you know, what this whole kneeling, the Super Bowl, Tom Brady, you know, what are your
Yeah.
final things on what's going on?
I mean, we've talked about this. Like to me,
Mm-hmm.
Kaepernick is just the 2010s Muhammad Ali. He's the
Mm-hmm.
he's the new version of an athlete who took a stand against something
Mm-hmm.
and became kind of, uplifted, but also torn down at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I think that happens. It seems like it happens every like 10, 15 years, every
Right.
decade or so. We've got this like kind of like main person who kind of embodies a generation and a movement
Mm-hmm.
per se. And
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts are just like I don't think he got a fair shot. I don't think him and Eric Reed, neither of them got a fair. Is Eric Reed right?
Yeah, it is Eric Reed. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
neither of them got a fair shot. They didn't do anything warranted. Not being picked up by another team. It's like they were literally like radioactive. After that, I think the NFL's perspective was it's just too much of a media spectacle. We don't need that kind of disrupting the games.
Mm-hmm.
But we know it's more than that.
Oh, of course.
It's more than that. So for me, it's just I think he kind of paid the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, he
Mm-hmm.
worked his whole life to be an NFL player, to be a professional ball player, and then that kind of got ripped away in his prime. Regardless of him being hurt, he still was like in his late mid-20s.
He was.
Regardless of him being hurt, he could have come back 2 years later and
Mm-hmm.
taken him to the championship again, taken him to the Super Bowl again. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely think he paid the ultimate price by literally doing something simple as kneeling during the national anthem, if you just really break it down to the basics. And
Mm-hmm.
the media, my favorite thing to talk about, they played a role in his demise.
Mm.
And it's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I'm glad to see that, again, the Black Lives Matter movement, which was what he was like loosely tied to. Because again, whenever you have a grievance against, you know, systemic oppression, systemic
Mm-hmm.
racism, you're automatically Black Lives Matter.
Automatically.
You know, that's kind of like the label, right? Even if you're just like, well, I've actually never marched for them, but as a Black person or as somebody who empathizes with Black people, I just think
Mm-hmm.
this, you know, systematic racism is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Don't necessarily have to be, you know, a part of any organization to have those views. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm just happy to see there's kind of like, I'm happy to see that what he was doing in 2016 and 2017 is like coming to fruition. You know, it's kind of like blossoming now because of all that's happened in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
So it is nice. It is nice to see that he's kind of the little impact that he probably never meant to make. He never probably meant to make this a spectacle.
Mm-hmm.
has really brought about so much, you know, conversation. You know, people are starting to open their eyes towards, you know, what really happens to Black and brown people. So that's my thoughts on that.
I mean, you know, I think you hit on all the great points, and I think, you know, sort of maybe having some of these discussions with people who typically will not have these discussions in the sports world, you know, because you talk about this in academia, you know, you talk about this on the news, but for football, it's supposed to be this escape, and I love it, you know, because it's an escape, and you know, I just love the sport of football. And one of the reasons why I kept watching football, because I'm an Eagles fan, as I will continuously say, but my team is garbage right now. But we had a player on there named Malcolm X, and he was really heavily in the player
Malcolm
coalition.
X?
No, I'm sorry, Malcolm Jenkins.
Like you had a player named
So
Malcolm X, huh? I missed that. I must have been gone from the NFL.
My bad. Freudian slip. My bad. And I wish. No, his name is Malcolm Jenkins. Now he plays for the New Orleans Saints, but he was like really heavy in the policing and brutality that was happening in Philadelphia and part of the Players Coalition and different things like that. And I always, you know, was wanting to go with the Kaepernick thing, but I was like, but you know, there's so many other athletes out there that are still continuing this message on, you know, and so I at least want to be
support him. Kaepernick doesn't support Malcolm Jenkins.
Well, he doesn't. Him and Eric Reed don't really support any of the football players who signed the contract with the NFL, and that's because of the grievance. Which one thing we didn't talk about either is that Kaepernick did file a grievance, and I think you touched on it though. Filed a grievance against the NFL. Him and Eric Reed, and they said that they were going to get like between $60 million, but the NFL only cut him a check for less than $10 million. You know, but you know, just one of my final things. You know, I'm always gonna watch football. You know, hopefully, football will transition more into more of a colorblind organization. Let's hope. Yeah. But I do find it ironic that Tom Brady is playing this weekend, and Tom Brady, as I said this before, with 7 Super Bowls, you are the man. But Tom Brady is a known cheater of football. You know, he's been on 2 teams that
Deflategate.
Deflategate was him. You know, they also have the TakeAKnee. I forgot which the other one was. I don't know if somebody in the chat can remember me, but it's whenever they were recording people's practices.
Yep.
Yeah. It was like TakeAKnee, or I can't remember what it was called, but it was pretty huge. But the thing is, though, they've been part of 2 cheating scandals, and then him by himself have been part of 1. So for somebody who defiles the integrity of the game, which is Tom Brady, it still gets to be able to play, almost chooses where he wants to go and live and play in Tampa Bay. You know, whatever he wants. And all Kaepernick wanted to talk about was social justice and change, and he's out the league. You know, so as what you do on the field really doesn't matter, because Tom Brady is, as we talked about, he's a G-man. He looks like the typical All-American white boy. He's the football captain. He has the, you know, supermodel wife, you know, kids and things like that. So of course they're going to make sure that he gets no blemishes on him. You know, I think OJ thought he was Tom Brady back in the 70s.
He literally probably looked in the mirror and saw Tom Brady, OJ.
Right. Oh, Videogate. That's what it was. Okay, appreciate that. Yeah. No, he did win the grievance, but he didn't win. Well, actually, from what I saw, I think Tobias talking about the grievance. From what I read, they just settled on the grievance. You know, that the grievance, that he didn't win anything. You know, that it was just a settlement. You know, but is there anybody in the chat you want to go ahead and shout out?
I want to shout out to Baya. Thank you for coming. My aunt Lisa, my mom, of course, Tristan and Diamond and Omar. Thank you guys for coming. I always appreciate you. And Aisha, always. Diamond, thank you guys. I always appreciate you here. And anybody who's not commenting, I think I think my friend Crystal stopped in. So anybody that's just listening and not typing, thank you for coming. We really appreciate it.
Really appreciate it. Thank you guys.
So please like us, subscribe, and get a notification.
Yes. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because we definitely want to keep doing more content like this. And of course, the support that you guys give us allows us to do this.
That's right.
And so now the next episode that we have coming up, there was no graph made for that, but we can at least give them a hint if you would like to. Go ahead.
So we're going to be talking about Black female and male relationships. Okay, that's kind of that's all I'm gonna say. It's gonna get real and gonna get sweet because it's Valentine's Day coming up. So yeah, we're gonna be talking about the dynamics between black men and black women.
And which is, as you guys already know, that continue to watch the show. For the people who have never watched the show, or in our dry run, since this is technically our first show, we go so deep that sometimes we know we're gonna have to do a series of things. So this is definitely one thing that we discussed, that we can't look at it monolithically like they look at Black culture. Black love is just not one thing. It's separated into so many different facets, and we just want to go ahead and peel just a facet, and then hopefully have this conversation with you guys next week. All right.
Right. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Appreciate you folks. Love y'all. Love, peace, and hair grease, and of course, I guess go Mahomes.
Go Mahomes. Let's go. Let's see. Big
All right,
black
y'all.
fist. Yeah. See y'all.